Hey guys, so don't figure out which is the best anti-tank infantry unit that Space Marines have access to, whether it's Eradicators or Centurion Devastators, and which one you should add to your list. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So to properly compare, we first need to get a basic overview of what these units are. Both are infantry, both have the shooting role, so they're not doing any combat anytime soon, and they are 3 to 6 models each, and both are mostly anti-vehicle, anti-monster. Centurions are 4 wounds each at toughness 7, 2+ save, and 4-inch move. Eradicators are toughness 6, 3 wounds and 3+ save, so the basic Gravis stat line, and 5-inch move. The Centurions are OC2 because they're very chunky, and OC1 on the Eradicators. In terms of what we're actually interested in, which is the shooting, the Eradicators are the close to mid-range unit with an 18-inch range melter rifles and multi-melters, strength 9, AP 4, damage D6, and that's the melter rifles. The multi-melter is pretty much the same thing, just 2 shots instead of 1. You can take 1 per 3 models, so 2 multi-melters per unit of 6. Both have heavy keywords, so if you stay stationary with these, you will get +1 to the hit roll, and Melta 2 rule, so in half range you're gonna be D6 + 2 damage. And the main thing is their ability, which is total obliteration for full rerolls to hit, wound, and damage against monsters and vehicles. That's why you want these guys in your lists. In terms of price, the Eradicators are 31 points per model currently, or 190 points per unit of 6. Price for Centurions has recently increased, and they're now 370 points per unit of 6, or 61 points per model. So what type of shooting do they have that would justify such a high price? Let me tell you, it's pretty good. It's 1 shot each, which doesn't sound that awesome, but hear me out. 1 shot each per model, so 6 shots per full squad, at strength 12, AP 3, damage D6 + 1. That's for las cannons, and las cannons are pretty much the best loadout for them currently. And the las cannons obviously have twin length because you have actually 2 las cannons on the models, and they are 48-inch range. In addition to that, which that would be not enough in my opinion for their output, but they thankfully have the Centurion missile launchers, which you have in the chest for them. It's D3 shots each with blast, and they are strength 9, AP 2, damage D3, which is quite rare nowadays, at 36-inch range. You don't get twin linked on this one, however, their ability to reroll once to hit always and full rerolls to hit if you're targeting something that is on an objective applies to the entire unit, so the missile launchers as well. It means that for your main shots you will be rerolling all hits and wounds as well, just like on the Eradicators. You don't have, unfortunately, the damage reroll, which is sad, but you have D6 + 1 instead of D6, so that's a bit more reliable. They also have 3 attacks each at strength 5, AP 1, damage 2, hitting on 4s in melee. Why I'm mentioning that, even though it's quite a pathetic kind of a stat line for melee, is that Eradicators don't have any attacks in combat whatsoever, apart from the regular close combat attacks, which are nothing. Here you at least have some extra bit of strength, you have some AP, and you have damage too. So if a squad of intercessor charges you will have at least some ability to defend this unit. However, you really want to have a detachment where you can either reactively move if something is trying to get into close combat with them, or fall back and shoot. And don't forget, if you want my personal help with comparisons like this one to make your rosters as deadly as possible, check out my Patreon links. They are in the description below. Now let's talk about how durable these two are. Obviously, the Eradicators are less durable because they are lower toughness, lower amount of wounds, and they are not 2+ save, which is probably the most important characteristic of these 3. In terms of just a raw basic comparison, I usually use the bolter chart, which is how many bolter shots at strength 4, AP 0, damage 1, hitting on 3s it takes to kill the squad entirely. And for Centurions, it's a very crazy 650 bolter shots. For Eradicators, it's much less, it's 250, so about 2.6 times more durable Centurions are in that sense against this threat. However, if you consider that the Centurions are almost double the price, and you factor that in, the actual difference in durability is about 30%. So durability per point, so to speak. And obviously, Eradicators are more susceptible to damage 3, the Centurions are more susceptible to damage 4 and damage 2, but that is not really comparing their durability to one another. Apart from the fact that damage 3 is quite prevalent now with how many Terminators are running around, so people are trying to add damage 3 to their rosters, so Centurions will be harder to get rid of, but any lost model will hurt more. In terms of other characteristics that are closely tied to durability, which in this case would be mobility, and the Centurions are slower by 1 inch than the Eradicators, but the difference is negligible, so I don't think we should compare these in this way. However, the real difference is the transport capacity they take up. The Centurions, they are very, very heavy, so they take up 3 slots in every transport they go to, like in Land Raider, for example, where Gravis only take 2. And that's a big difference because, for example, a Redeemer can fit a full unit of Eradicators, and you still have 1 more slot for a Gravis model like a Biologist to give them fire discipline. Centurions can't have any characters join them, so we're not giving them any enhancements, which we should keep in mind. And they also can only fit a 3-man into a Land Raider because the 6th model just won't fit. Now that I think of it, it's even the 5th model that won't fit. Now the most important part, which is the damage output. Let's analyze how much damage these guys can do. So for a basic, very, very basic test against a Rhino type target, so toughness 9, 3+ save, which does equal the strength of Eradicators, so it's a nice threshold we're testing at. They will do 24 damage to a Rhino, obviously bypassing the save, and that is quite an impressive result for a 6-man unit. They do drop off significantly against anything that is higher toughness, so against the Lehman Russ, for example, toughness 12, 2+ save, doing 14 damage instead. Centurions, a 6-man squad, does about 25 damage to a Rhino, and also 17.7 damage to a toughness 11 2+ save target. Why toughness 11? Because obviously toughness 12 will equal the strength of the last cannon, so we will drop off quite significantly, and as you can see, it's about a 2 damage difference, so 15.5 damage against a Lehman Russ type of target, and that's both last cannons and Centurion missile launchers combined. And that is testing with all the hit rolls, wound rolls, and damage rolls included. So Centurions do pump out more damage, however it's far from being double, it's very actually close. However, you do get more versatility because you can get your rerolls against any type of target where the Eradicators can only target vehicles and monsters for maximum efficiency. That's pretty much the main category of units you would be willing to target with such a unit like Eradicators or Centurions, but you also want to have a tool against elites, and Centurions are great against them as well with their missile launchers. Of course, you're paying for range because the Centurions can get anywhere pretty much. If they see the target, they will be in range. The Eradicators without the transport, that is just a lost cause. Or if you came from reserves, you are also fine until you kill everything that is in range of you, and then you are in trouble, depending on which detachment you're running, of course. Eradicators also have a big advantage compared to Centurions because they have the Melta 2 rule, which we did not include in any of the testing. So if you are targeting something within 9 of you, which that is quite difficult to achieve because you cannot get there from reserves, and you have to actually walk up to that distance or ride in a transport up to that distance. But if you get within 9, the mathematics are going to change dramatically in Eradicator's favor. Regarding tactics, in both cases you do need to solve the issue of mobility because 4 and 5 inch move is not gonna get you anywhere. You do that through the detachment or transports. The Eradicators just won't target anything unless they're close enough. The Centurions will probably get something in range if you just deploy them in your deployment zone, but they will be probably shooting at this one thing only, and unless you get lucky with angles, it will be hard for you to get more targets, and they will be just stuck without targets until something charges and kills them. Centurions can be your one-size-fits-all solution for most of your shooting needs once you figure out that mobility part. Mostly you do that by playing them in Vanguard because you get the redeployment ability there, but also advance and shoot, fall back and shoot that you get from Gladius, or advance and shoot that you get from Stormlands are going to solve that issue partially for you. In that sense, the Centurions are a useful tool because you just invest in 370 points and you have this unit that you can just teleport from one part of the board to another, trying to avoid all the charges possible and just destroying anything that is in that sector of the map. Eradicators are a more specific tool that you use to get rid of a heavily armored monster vehicle target that preferably doesn't have an invulnerable save, otherwise the efficiency just goes down the tubes. So I would use the Eradicators as both 3-man and 6-man squads, depending on how you want to approach that. The 3-man's obviously without the character, 6-man can be with a character, like for example the great combo in Gladius with the fire discipline on a Biologist that is going to destroy pretty much any vehicle monster target you can imagine. Or you can play them in the Firestorm for +1 save coming from reserves and being within 12, so you are getting essentially +1 to wound, which is very, very important for when you are wounding things on 5s with full rerolls. is very different from wounding things on 4s with full rerolls. For Centurions, definitely full 6-man squads. I'm probably going to recommend running them in Vanguard because 1 CP strike from the Shadow is going to do wonders to that squad. +1 to hit and extra AP is all you need for them. Plus the extra battle shock trigger that you apply to that unit, so they have to take a battle shock if they lost any models, which that is great against elite units that you want to subsequently charge and don't want them to use defensive abilities, defensive stratagems, I mean. So let me know how you feel about these two units, whether you're using them in your list or not. I would love to hear that in the comment section below, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.